to the panel members, and I've started to make note of some points which I think we should all walk away with when you go back to your organizations, and what I'd like you to think about, so you can assist us as we move forward in institutionalizing some of this goodness that has occurred among the ACOMs that are represented here, as well as some of the supporting organizations, which I haven't mentioned, and there are a lot of them. So, are there questions from the floor? Okay, let's pass the microphone around. Which one works?
I'll try to speak loudly. Rose, I'm sorry I didn't catch your last name.
Arvin?
If you, I have two questions. If you could,
Microphone,
okay. If you could expand on the measures of success that you mentioned that you reevaluate at the end of the year to see if your council is set up properly, what those measures are. And then Mr. Bassett, also if you could expand a little on the findings of your cost-benefit analysis. What were the things that were heavy costs or burdened by benefits?
Okay, well, as I told you, the Army Medicine Knowledge Management Council is fairly new, and we're going to reevaluate at the end of 1 year to see where we are as far as with our strategic objectives. So we have initiatives, we have some initiatives that are tied with each of our objectives, and the way we're going to measure is to see have we implemented those objectives, have we acted upon those initiatives, okay? So what we're planning to do right now is we've taken our initiatives, which include about 12 to 15 initiatives, and we've actually developed a matrix that's going to help us prioritize those initiatives. So we're prioritizing our initiatives. We obviously know we can't do all 12 or 15 initiatives at one time. So we're going to break up into work groups once we identify the top 3 initiatives that we're going to start implementing. At the end of 1 year, we're going to look back and see, did we actually implement those initiatives? How well did the council work? Do we have the right people on the council? Those are the types of questions we're going to ask ourselves. As far as measurements for each of the initiatives, that is actually going to be up to the individual work groups as we put those work groups together for each of the initiatives. For example, one of our initiatives is to develop a world-class knowledge network that is going to be an enterprise place where people can collaborate, they can share knowledge, they can find the resources, key resources that they need. Right now we have what we call the Medical Warfighter Forum. Is it there? No, it's not there. So that is, right now we're looking at that. We've already done the matrix and we've already scored it, and that's going to be one of our top priorities. So we're going to have a work group that's actually going to identify ways to implement that, and we'll look at where we're at the end of 1 year. Another initiative is developing an education and training strategy. Our objective is to build knowledge management competency. We have to train and educate the workforce on the skills necessary to facilitate knowledge sharing and collaboration. Well, one way to do that is to educate them. And so one of our initiatives is to develop an education and training strategy. So if that turns out to be one of our top priorities, we're going to go ahead and start developing that. And then again, we'll look at the end of the year where we're at, how far we've gotten with that, and ensuring that we have the right players on that work group.
Let me make one comment about metrics. Metrics in this business is very difficult. It's very easy to collect statistics, number of unique users, number of downloads, number of whatevers from AKO, which is where most of the environment in which most of this stuff is done. The challenge is, what's the value of the knowledge you're presenting to the warfighter, for example? Is it something that saved a life? Is it something that was of value that he could pass on to someone else? Did he get it in time? Was the bandwidth capable of delivering that over time, or over the network to him? And again, we've got this is a G6 conference, a CIO-G6 conference, and that's one of their focuses. So it is a challenge. Storytelling is one way to collect those metrics, if you will. We have used, we've done a lot, we've expanded our responsibilities to doing a lot of process engineering and change and part of our transformation initiatives. And what I have done is I've used the successes in the G33, G35, and had them be my sellers, my marketeers to other activities within the department, or within TRADOC. And then again, when the CG in General Dempsey, in his preparation for becoming the 37th Chief of Staff, he used our dashboard to collect a lot of the information and knowledge that he needed to testify within the Congress, before the Congress. So the DCG, who I work for, when questions came in on his prep, he kept referring the preparers back to the dashboard, and there was virtually 75% of the knowledge, the information he needed about the command, about the Army, was there. So it's a matter of experience, process change, habits. Dashboards are very good. My new commanding general, General Cohn, likes have an iPad. Well, we can't put the dashboard on an iPad right now, so that's something we have to address. Figure out ways to do that. There is an initiative at the Army for wireless enablers for senior leaders. Hopefully we'll leverage that and get some changes. But metrics are difficult. Storytelling is a good way to do it right now, and again, it is much more difficult to get some of these hard numbers to do cost-benefit analysis and those kind of things. Next, we had a question over here on the left.
Joe, can you hear me? Is this good? Joe, we talked about a couple months ago, who is the proponent for Department of the Army? I see you're under the CIO D6, but has there been a proponent or advocate, either the Chief of Staff or the 3 or the 6, to take this on to date? So as the subordinate units are getting fielded knowledge managers, Craig and I talked about this in the past, a couple months ago, of fielding the personnel, and that's 2 right now at division level. Who is the proponent right now, or is there going to be a proponent that is going to oversee knowledge management?
Well, for the operating force, component command down is CAC and Andy Mortensen and his group.
That's what I'd like to address some of those things
Sure.
you asked about also, some things you brought up.
Okay.
Sorry, I had Carl the mic.
So that's really what I was asking. Just that, Joe, just real quick, and I'll let that Colonel Mortensen speak. What I was looking more towards who at the Department of the Army level, DHE 3 or 6.
The proposal, right now, as I said, last month, General Sorensen made a decision to discharge the CKO responsibility from her office. I met last week with members in her office, Ms. Salazar and Mr. Gunlicks in the building, and Colonel John Morrison, who's LandWarNet guy, and the Commander's Initiatives Group, or the Initiatives Group within G3. And we've come to the conclusion that TRADOC will take it on. TRADOC needs to be resourced to do it, whatever that number happens to be. But the big daddy in the building, the proposal is for the Office of Business Transformation to be the big daddy. That's the first choice. Second choice is DesOps, somewhere in DesOps. We are working through that right now. Andy can answer the question about the operating force.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. If I can drop the O on that, we become the AKM proponent office, because right now I am the only proponent office that's available or is active right now for the Army. I stepped into the job about a year ago, less than a year ago. Since then, we stood up the AOKM proponent office. We have already started to adjust and adapt the doctrine. We are involved with, we're in a perfect spot in CAC. We work under Mission Command Center of Excellence, which ties us into what the operational force is moving towards as they change and adapt the new doctrine that they are now pushing forward. We're tied in with the CAD, which is developing Doctrine 2015. So we are now going to have a full chapter. It's going to be an FM6 that we're writing right now that's going to go into Doctrine. We are readjusting the ATTP at this time. It's in draft. Any comments, things are due by the end of this month. And then we're going to publish by the end of next month. So we'll start that transition. That'll supersede the FM601.1. Some of those major changes in there is we are looking at how the definition is inside there, because it's very difficult to really hook anything onto that. So we are making the definition stronger. What is CAM? Not that it's just the arts and science thing, but really getting down to that. We're also looking at how the Mission Command ties into KM, how we support and bridge. Knowledge management is the bridge for Mission Command to the network and how it functions, as well as how inside an organization getting to the process, how crucial that is. The training we developed, we've already had 2 pilot courses. We've graduated a total of about we have 25 right now. Next course we'll have a group of 20. In the course we have 3 weeks. It gives an ASI of 1 echo. We're right now working also to get that designation of 1 echo associated with the IMTOS positions that are already in the system. So make sure that you have that opportunity to get that training and make sure that you are identified through HR, through personnel issues with HR to make sure that they know who is trained and who's available. So there are a lot of initiatives that we're working on that we're moving forward with. Right now, it's a small group. I've got a group of about 5 people, 4 people that work for me right now that are GS level. And then we're also have a couple contract support, but we're also have a concept that's already been approved to build that up to a total of 10 GS. So we're just waiting for the hiring freeze and those issues to be resolved, and then we start hiring. PDs are in. We've already identified what those people, what they should be doing, where they should be doing it. So the phone office is right now on the edge of being able to really take this to the next level. So it's great news having that moving from CIG6, did a lot of great stuff, but it's time for it to move into the operational community, into the groups that are actually doing this stuff. I spent, since 2005 as a KM officer, spent a couple years downrange doing KM work, so I know where a lot of these issues are and a lot of concerns. Again, also with the doctrine development, we are enterprising, we are bringing it all together to make sure that each level from FM3, FM6, and then when they get into the ADP 3 and 6, we've got our hooks into that. So it's in the main parts, the upper level of the doctrine, to make sure that KM becomes relevant and not just a nice catchword that we can get some money for. So the other parts that we're focusing on is also developing NTT training that'll be base level. So we can start shipping this out. The bosses, General Kazan wants us to keep the 3-week course in-house so that you're going to come to TRADOC to get that training. Initial focus is on the guys that are going into those positions, but we've also trained GS level as we have positions available. Trying to keep the classes right now at about 20. So it's the adult learning process of getting rid of a lot of the slides. We don't do it by PowerPoint. We try to minimize that. The personal tracking piece, we've already started collecting on who's where and who's doing what. We have, and we're starting to work to share that with HR. As far as material, I sit with the CDID, is where they put the component office, which means I work where the requirements division's at. I work with the TICM Battle Command or Mission Command. I'm in that same building. So we're tying in all of that parts and pieces, so we're not synchronizing that. And that's all started happening about the last 6 months. So I'm really excited about where we're going and how we're developing. So we're poised to take that and start moving that forward. That's pretty much a lot of the things that I've identified over this past year of what we're working on and trying to make sure that we're tied in. And we've been working with Joe to make sure as he's developing some of the civilian training, we're tying in better with that and make sure it's the same. Because KM is KM wherever you go. All those base level pieces are the same. How you implement them might be a little different. Our training will focus on B2CWGs. We work on knowledge management assessments. We focus on knowledge mapping. How does that information flow? How do you design it? How do you develop the flow of information inside there? Not looking at systems, but how the processes work. So those are all the pieces we're getting these soldiers and individuals as they come through our training. I've got one more pilot course I got to do. In January, I get an assessment, and then we'll become, and after January, we'll become an actual ATARS listed training course. So we're right there. That's all I got. So
I got a question.
Sure.
And one, I'll yell. There's a lot of discipline under KM.
You can't yell at DC